Flickering candlelight painted the room with wavering shadows, casting an eerie glow upon the scene that would forever haunt his memory. The mercenary had left camp at nightfall to find the Neapolitan woman from whom his disfigured member had kept him. What he found was a nightmare. There, upon a wooden table, she lay naked and shivering. The room was filled with the pungent scent of melted wax. A 15th-century physician clad in archaic robes stood beside her. In the gentle candlelight, the mercenary saw the truth etched upon her body, a tapestry of affliction that the physician gently covered with a linen blanket. Her lymph nodes were swollen, a testament to the insidious disease that had gripped her. The woman's anogenital region bore the marks of condyloma lata, smooth and broad-based warts. As she opened her mouth to speak, the mercenary glimpsed the oral mucosa, also affected by the same malevolence. Her breathing was loud. She had syphilitic tonsillitis. Across her back, arms and shoulders, a nodular, partly pustular, copper-coloured rash marred her once flawless skin. The same rash adorned her palms and the soles of her feet, a polymorphic tapestry of affliction. Patchy alopecia had stripped her of her once lustrous hair, leaving behind only the remnants of her former beauty. His heart heavy with fear, the mercenary asked her what had befallen her, but the physician interjected before she could respond. The doctor's theory sent shivers down the mercenary's spine, a theory born of cruel and gruesome imagination. The physician believed that Spanish soldiers, in a fit of barbarity, had subjected her to unspeakable torments. They had allegedly tied her down and subjected her to a macabre ritual involving molten copper. The scalding liquid had been pipetted all over her back, arms and shoulders until the copper-coloured rash manifested. The pain, the physician surmised, must have been unbearable, and the torment didn't end there. The soldiers, the doctor claimed, had resorted to even more grotesque methods. They had rubbed toads on her anogenital region, resulting in the smooth, broad-based warts that now covered her vulva and anus. Another sinister toad had been placed within her mouth. As if these horrors weren't enough, the most grotesque detail emerged: rats. The soldiers had unleashed these vile creatures upon her head, and they had torn off chunks of her once lustrous hair, leaving behind patchy alopecia. It was a nightmare born of cruelty and madness, typical of Charles VIII's mercenaries, claimed the doctor. The mercenary's heart ached as he listened to the doctor's grim tale. His beloved mistress, the woman who had captured his heart, had endured unimaginable suffering. He had to know who had inflicted this torment upon her. Turning to the woman on the table, he asked in a hushed voice, "Who did this to you? Was it the Spanish?" In the dimly lit corner of the room, a foreign-looking woman stood, her presence eerie and unsettling. With a graceful pirouette she twirled, her movements both haunting and mesmerizing. The wounded mistress pointed toward her, her trembling finger a silent accusation. The mercenary's heart pounded with a mixture of rage and disbelief. He had seen this woman before, but where? She was clearly foreign, but from no population he had even seen before. She locked eyes with him, and for a moment he saw a wild energy, and knew she was inside of him. "She is hallucinating, it's due to the fever," said the doctor. "She has been pointing towards that corner for the past 3 days. Obviously there has never been anyone there." In the shadowy depths of a forgotten monastery, hidden among the gnarled trees of a desolate forest, an unlikely pair of souls found refuge. The night was heavy with silence, disturbed only by the occasional rustle of leaves and the whisper of the wind. This eerie solitude was the sanctuary of a Spanish mercenary named Enrique, a man plagued not only by the horrors of war, but by the relentless grip of tertiary syphilis. Escaping from the confines of a wretched sanatorium had been Enrique's only choice. The doctors there were cruel, their treatments ineffective, and the torment unbearable. With emaciated limbs and hollowed cheeks, he wandered into the abandoned monastery, his body deteriorating, his mind fraying at the edges. Enrique crawled beneath a decrepit desk, seeking shelter from the world, exhaustion pulling him into a deep sleep. The night crept on, and the darkness became more oppressive. As he lay there, a symphony of breaths, ragged and strained, escaped his parched lips, filling the room with a grotesque, otherworldly sound. Unknown to Enrique, Another wanderer had sought refuge within these forsaken walls. A man, afflicted by the same vile disease that ravaged Enrique's body, moved awkwardly through the shadows. His gait was broad-based, his steps unsteady, and his figure cloaked in darkness. He has tabes dorsalis, which is to say, the neurons within his dorsal column had been demyelinated by years of chronic infection by Treponema pallidum. He had lost proprioception in his legs, which is to say, he could not feel where his legs were, as presumably Frankenstein's monster could not, and they walked with a similar gait. The man held a lamp that cast eerie, flickering shadows on the damp stone walls. He followed the sound of Enrique's laboured breathing, his own breaths shallow and irregular. It was a scene right out of a nightmare, and in the dead of night the man with the lamp believed he had encountered a monstrous creature lurking in the dark corners of the monastery. Closer he crept, the dim light revealing his face as he bent over the desk where Enrique lay. But what he saw struck terror into his heart. The pupils of the figure beneath the desk were not large and dilated as they should be in the comparative darkness, but small, surrounded by a hazel iris in the faint light of the lamp. They had the telltale sign of Argyll Robertson pupils, another sign of neurosyphilis. A gasp, laden with dread, escaped the man with the lamp, and his eyes widened with fear. He had stumbled upon something unnatural, something from a nightmare. He tried to pull away, but his body betrayed him, and his trembling legs gave way. He collapsed to the ground, panic and horror etched across his face. In that instant, Enrique, awakened by the stranger's presence, gazed upon the man with his own affliction. He saw the deformities on his face, the grotesque gumas that mirrored his own disfigurement. They were two wretched souls, united by the darkness that had consumed their lives. Both men shouted frightened curses in their native Spanish tongues, their voices echoing through the desolate monastery. Panic hung heavy in the air until Enrique, still trembling, uttered, "Espera, eres español yo también?" They locked eyes in disbelief, and slowly the fear began to dissipate. The man with neurosyphilis stammered, "I thought I had stumbled upon a monster. I never imagined another soul would be in this forsaken place." Enrique nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "But you are right. I am a monster, abandoned by the world. My name is Enrique." The man with the lamp introduced himself as Miguel, and they began to speak. Their words are balm to their wounded souls. They shared stories of their torment, their futile battles against their ailment, and the cruel treatment they had endured in the sanatorium. Miguel revealed that he had witnessed one patient subjected to trepanation, his skull drilled into by merciless doctors who sought to cure his ailment. Inside his head, they had found lesions that resembled the gummers that now marred Enrique's face. Perhaps they were inside Miguel's head as well. In the shadowy confines of that forsaken room, they offered each other solace. They agreed to journey on together, to live in the wilderness until one or both of them succumbed to their affliction. For in each other's company, they had found the understanding and companionship that had eluded them for so long. With newfound hope and determination, they rose from their hiding place, ready to face the unknown together. But as they stepped toward the door, their path was blocked by an unexpected and bewildering sight. There, in the doorway, stood a young woman of ethereal beauty and cruelty, her presence radiant and surreal. Her physiognomy and attire hinted at a life far removed from their own, in both space and time, and her eyes sparkled with an otherworldly light. The woman began to dance, her movements graceful and entrancing, as if she were performing some arcane ritual. She twirled and spun, her form blurring in the dim light of the monastery, a vision of pure enchantment. Enrique and Miguel watched in awe and trepidation, their hearts pounding in their chests. They both knew who she was. She was Treponema pallidum. They had seen her in the sanatorium whenever their suffering was most cruel. She was the reason they could never return to their wives. How they wished they could tie coarse ropes around her slender figure, wrapped in furs and leather, and leave her there to die. Now she danced her pirouette, in the heart of the abandoned monastery, on its cold floor, and knew they could not abandon her. She was the only mistress either had known for 7 years, and she would be with them another 7, if they lived that long.